We were just talking about the war in Iran continuing. Is that having an impact on the state of Massachusetts? If so, how so?
Well, every day while we're at war, and first of all, God bless the men and women who are over there serving in harm's way. We pray for their safety. We pray for their families. The war's costing us $1 billion a day. So of course it's going to play out over time on all of us, on all Americans. I mean, this is an administration, Donald Trump ripped $1 trillion out of health care. We're seeing the pain of that already. We're certainly seeing the pain at the pump. I mean, yes, it's had an effect. Look at gas. What is gas now? It's well over $4 a gallon. And so, that's on top of things that he's already done in terms of tariffs, in terms of, raising the cost of just about everything that we buy, groceries, gas, clothing, you name it. So it's having, and it will continue to have serious consequences. And, the effect on our supply chain is enormous. And even if the war were to end tomorrow, that's going to have consequences that are going to play out over several months, several months. And so, just imagine the effects on supply chain and in our economy. And for me, what I care about is what does that mean for the lives of folks in Massachusetts?
Yeah.
And it's just continuing to add to the pain and create more and more issues around affordability for folks.
Our number is 877-301-8970. Either call or text the governor question. Governor, we've spoken a lot on the show about the House's action and your proposed action on addressing the dangers of social media for young people. To summarize, and please correct me if I get any of this wrong, the House has passed, among other things, a ban on social media for people under 14. You've endorsed that, expanded it to include things like a total of 2 hours for older teens on social media. Civil libertarians here and elsewhere have said they're deeply concerned, while they share the goal and concern about the problem, that age verification systems would be a problem, one, vis-a-vis the First Amendment, and two, in terms of privacy concerns. Do you share those concerns?
Well, I'll tell you how I come to this. I come to this as somebody who for years as Attorney General investigated these social media companies and platforms. I understand the addictive nature of these platforms, and I also have seen in very real ways the harm that these platforms cause because of their addictive nature to kids. And that, in the studies, it's well documented, the effects on anxiety, depression, self-esteem. There are issues around predators. I mean, so this is not new. And I came forward with something that I think is really important, and I've had a lot of positive feedback from parents. As somebody who's a parent myself, we've got to be doing everything we can to protect our young people, and that's why my legislation basically takes the power away from these platforms and gives it to young people, gives it to parents. Okay, and that's why there are limitations around the length of use, how much time you can spend on a platform during the day. As parents will have the ultimate control over that, of course, and can change the default setting, but it puts the onus on platforms. It requires these platforms to default away from addictive things like scrolling and automatic play and just the pumping of addictive content. It allows young people, users, to actually control the kind of content that they get. So I think these are things that make a lot of sense to people and go a long ways to reducing the harm. In terms of, mine is not age verification, it's actually age assurance, which is different. And I am very sensitive, as my team is, to concerns about kids, whether it's kids in the LGBTQ community or elsewhere, being able to find community online and with these platforms, and I think there's a way to do it. My legislation doesn't require, for example, the showing of an ID, which is something that some of these groups have expressed concern about. So I know that folks are going to continue to meet with my office. We'll continue to work with the legislature on this. But I have to believe that there is a way to come up with something sensible that protects the health and well-being of our kids who are really deeply impacted by the prevalence of these social media platforms in their lives.
What's age assurance as compared to age verification?
Well, it requires, it's a little different. I'll tell you that in broad strokes, what it does is it doesn't require things like photo identification, which is something that some of these groups have been concerned about. There are other ways. It also says that anything that the platform gets in terms of information will be deleted in 10 days.
Do you trust them to delete it? I mean, these are the least trustworthy businesses in America, which is why you're attempting to address their sins, no?
But I think to do nothing is just not the way to go. I mean, and that's why, look, I come to this as the person who actually investigated these platforms. I know full well what they're capable of. We've been warning about this for years. It's why I sent subpoenas nearly 10 years ago on this. I also know that when it comes to things like addictive behaviors and privacy, don't you think these platforms understand their technology enough to do what needs doing? We just need to require it by law. And I'm comfortable that we can work with groups about any concerns we have around privacy. As somebody who has done a lot in the area of LGBTQ rights and protections and fought bullying and fought discrimination and is very sensitive to the needs of folks in that community in particular, I'll make sure that folks are protected. But we need to do something. I mean, kids are on 4 to 5 hours a day, are some of the estimates. And the rates of anxiety, depression, loss of self-esteem, body image, this stuff is real. And I feel like, as governor, I want to give parents an assist here. I want to give parents some help here. And we've got to take actions. Mine is not a ban, but mine is, I think, measures that I think make a lot of sense in terms of putting in place things that are going to actually help our kids' well-being, help our kids be successful. I think that that's what parents want for their kids.
That's Governor Maura Healey. She's with us for the hour at 877-301-8970.
We'll take a call on this. Currently, we've got a whole lines full of people wanting
Let's
to talk
take
about
one
this.
on
So we'll
it,
take
yeah.
one on it, and then we're going to move on. Rio from Waltham, thank you for calling.
Hi, Rio.
Hello.
Hi.
Thank you for coming on and taking questions from the public. I am very concerned about the privacy implications of this law. I wanted to frame this question in the context of, just a second. So, Discord received immense blowback for trying to do something similar. And part of the reason why was that, as you pointed out, these are some of the least trustworthy companies. Most of the age verification contractors have ties back to Palantir, the Israeli surveillance company that Epstein sold tech for. And I wanted to ask, in an age of corporate abuse and crackdowns on the First Amendment and our privacy, how are Massachusetts residents supposed to feel safe when we're pushing legislation that would put some form, maybe not IDs, but some form of our sensitive personal information, biometric or otherwise, and that of our children,
Got it.
put that sensitive information in the hands of amoral corporations like
Rio,
Stagnant?
thank you for your question. If you want to add anything to what you said, Governor?
Yeah, I mean, first of all of this is under consideration. All of this would be under development. My proposal actually gives the Attorney General the authority through rulemaking to establish what exactly needs to be provided in terms of age verification. So I've said nothing about biometrics, and I already said that no photo ID would be required, for example. But that's something to be worked out. But if anybody thinks in this day and age that they have some sort of privacy online as it exists, give me a break. I mean, another thing that my legislation does is it gets rid of location services. I mean, you guys walking down the street, you get targeted, right, for ads, for this and that, because you just happen to pass by a store or you just made a purchase somewhere. I want to give people the control. We live in a world where the platforms have complete and total control. And all I'm saying is I want users, in this case our young people, to have control. But I'm on the side of people here. I'm on the side of giving people the power, giving people the ability to take steps to protect themselves. That's what this is really about.
Just one last quick thing about this. When it talks about parents taking control, you don't have to be a parent for long to realize that your 4-year-old kid is more adept online than you are at 30 or 40 or 50. And if you can't control your child's use of a phone when they're 12 or 13, I find it hard to believe parents are going to be able to
That's exactly,
outwit their
but
children.
that's exactly why, okay, the onus needs to be on the platforms. What I am saying is the platforms need to set it up this way. They need to bake it this way from the outset. You know, right now, parents can opt in to certain limiters around behavior in programs that are addictive and cause harm. I want to take the onus off of parents, okay? Because not everybody has the ability or the
Right.
facility with the technology, and put it on the platforms at the outset. That's what this is about.
Tim at the
Because
library.
I take your
I'm sorry,
point on
Governor,
that.
my
You know,
apologies.
it's kids today know so much more, and that's why we need the platforms to step up and do their job at the outset.
Tim is at the mic at the library. Tim, welcome. Thanks for coming. Hi.
Yeah, thank you. Hi, Governor. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for being here and for this opportunity. Yeah, Tim, I'm from our hometown, Arlington. So I just wanted to let you know, so I've been in the biotech community now for my entire career here in the Boston area. I'm just as part of my career, and I've been in the job market now for, you know, at time to time over that time period of my career, and it's been pretty good. But you know, right now it's the worst I've ever seen. You know, it's hard to even describe what's going on there right now. It's so stagnant. There's so much talent out there right now, just applying for the same jobs, and it's almost it's futile.
Tim, what's your question, if I may?
Yeah, sorry.
That's okay.
So I guess number one, are you aware of that situation in the biotech industry here in Massachusetts? And also, is there any idea of maybe stimulating that, you know, to really stimulate the job market? Is there any way of, you know, trying to, you know, stimulate what's going on there? And also, I'm sure I'm not the only one that's been out of work now for more than 6 months. And is there, you know, I know that my understanding is after 6 months, you can't get unemployment insurance. Just wanted to be clear, is that the case there, or is there any way of extending that?
Let's let the governor respond to all that. Governor.
Oh, well,
Thank you, Tim.
Thanks, Tim, for your question. And yes, I'm certainly aware that globally we've seen, and especially in this country right now, life sciences and biotech is going through a downturn. We've seen that. That's been the case the last few years. And some of these things, they are very much cyclical, and it happens to be, this is happening at a time too when inflation is high and where there are other real pressures on people. So it's a hard time. What I have done is say, you know, in the face of Donald Trump taking away gutting funding for science and research, because that's happened. We've lost jobs here and around the country to Donald Trump defunding science and research and the work that's happening in labs and elsewhere in our state and around the country. I've come forward and said, let's invest money. So my proposal, the DRIVE initiative, puts money into funding for science and research, 4 positions in science and research. One, I think that's good for humanity because we need to continue the work to find more cures and more treatments to disease and the like. And also it's good for the economy to have that investment so that we make sure that we have a pipeline growing and we keep people like you at work. I can't control everything. And the fact that the federal government has taken this huge step backwards from funding science and research plays out every day, and it hurts people like you, Tim. It's the reason right now, you know, that you see China and countries from Europe hustling and growing so much when it comes to life sciences because those places are making the investment. You know, what China has done in the last 5-10 years in terms of growth in life sciences, it's exponential, just like they've done it in AI, just like they're doing it with climate technologies. So, you know, we need help from the federal government. We need a president and a federal administration that understands this stuff and understands the importance of us supporting and nurturing life sciences because, you know, at the end of the day, some of these things take years to yield results. You go through many trials, you go through so many efforts just to see one discovery through to something that actually will get to market. And, you know that I'm with you, I support the industry, and, you know, I hope for people like you that we see the full employment come back. I will say that Massachusetts has had the fastest job growth. Nationally, we had the best above national average over the last 6 months. So while we've gone through a downturn, I do see some things picking back up again, and I hope that bodes well for you specifically, Tim.
Tim, good luck. You know, in a related question, we had the president, Mark Morial, former mayor of New Orleans, president of the National Urban League, on the other day with Rasan Hall, who's the head of the New England, who I know you know. And they're proposing legislation called Clean Slate. We already have, it passed under Governor Patrick, legislation that causes criminal records to disappear for nonviolent offenses, as you know, I'm just explaining in public, after a certain number of years. About a dozen states now have gone further than us and have it automatically extinguished after those numbers of years. And their concern is jobs, housing, all these kinds of things that you're penalized even if you've paid your debt. Do you support clean slate legislation, automatic elimination of records after the statutorily prescribed time?
I haven't seen it yet. I have to take a look at that legislation. You say it's something that's been proposed here?
Yeah, it's pending in the
I have to
legislature.
take I haven't seen it.
Okay.
But I have, early on, remember I'm the first governor to do pardons in the first term ever. I think that's something I did a while back, and as somebody who was both a civil rights lawyer and a prosecutor, I really care a lot about making sure that our criminal justice system is fair. We've also supported efforts around the sealing of records and the like, because I do understand how that can play out when it comes to people who do their time then having difficulty finding an employment or finding an apartment to rent. And the like. So I'll take a look at that.
But conceptually, from what you're saying, you support something like this. You just want to see the details. Is that where we are?
I don't know what I don't know.
Okay.
I want to see what's in the
Fair
legislation.
enough. We'll talk about it next month. We're talking to Governor Healey, 877-301-8970. We have to break in 2.5 minutes, Marjorie.
Yeah, we do. So it'll have to be a quick question, quick answer. I know you proposed, the MCAS was turned down by voters as a graduation requirement. And I know you proposed some other comprehensive program. But as of now, there is nothing. And Jim Pizer, former Secretary of Education, looked around to requirements now and found that 2/3 of districts that he looked at found a D- was okay to get out of school. Another, I think 18% said a D was okay. And that did seem like a rather low standard to graduate, have to go into the real world and find a job and function if that's your level of accomplishment. We're real quick, I'm sorry, I have to go to break.
Or we can continue after the break,
Or we can continue
too.
after the break, too. You can start now and continue after the break.
Well, just to put this in context, Massachusetts is #1 in education across all categories, and the nation's report card across all categories, 10 to 12. And that's something to be proud of. We also don't rest on our laurels. And we're at a critical moment right now because we have to think about what is it that kids need, especially as they leave high school. We have an opportunity to reimagine that. I'm now in the process, my team is, of working with others on putting together what that new framework looks like so that we have a common set of things that we're having kids study, that they're assessed on that and evaluated, so we make sure they have those competencies. We're going to inject into it experiential learning, so to speak, on-the-job training, because work experience, we know, can really enhance a learning experience and allow these students today who are so bright and engaged to be more self-directed in their course of study, and also inject things like financial literacy into the curricula. So I'm excited
The legislature has to pass that, though,
we do,
right?
but we have to finish work with stakeholders to put together a framework that we think really makes sense and that will set every student up for success upon high school graduation. But I'm proud of the investments that we've made. We've got more kids taking advantage of vocational training, career technical training in high schools right now. We've got more kids in early college programs in our high schools right now, and we just need to really continue to make those investments. Education is essential.
You know, Governor, I'm asking you this question because you are an athlete and you played basketball in college. There was a really upsetting story on the front page of the Globe today, Shannon Larson's report about a young freshman golfer at Masconomet High School. Apparently he's better than a lot of the boys. She made the boys' golf team, and it was, according to her and her family, in this suit they filed, or this complaint they filed, an unmitigated disaster. It got so bad that the English teacher had to walk her to class to protect her from bullies, things like hockey players threatening sexual violence. performance in front of other athletes, boys in the locker room talking about performing sex acts on her, changing her score to make it seem like she did worse than they did, playing these songs on the bus. She's the only girl with these horrible lyrics about doing things to women, and she didn't even get the same hat as the boys on the golf team. I don't know if there's anything you can do about this, but I just wanted to bring it to your attention because this young woman, Charlotte Rollins, I can't believe she had to put up with this in 2026, and the school did not protect her by the sound of this story.
Yeah, I haven't seen that yet. I want to talk to her. I mean, that's terrible. I don't, look, it's. I don't know that I would be where I am today were it not for opportunities that I had in sports. And, I'm so grateful to Title IX and all who advocated for that, who continue to advocate for its enforcement, to make opportunities available to girls in sports and in other educational settings. And, obviously I have zero patience with or tolerance for bullying, harassment of any kind against any young person. So I'd like to look at that more, but also like the moment we're in. I mean, look at the exciting developments we've had in women's sports. The new collective bargaining agreement we have in the WNBA. We see, in 1 year the rookie salary went from $75,000 to $500,000. As it should be. And we have women's soccer, who's come here to Boston. We have the Fleet, the women's hockey team. They're in the playoffs playing Thursday. And that's right. It's as it should be. It's as it should be. And, I don't know the specifics of what was going on with the golf team, but it sounds like she was a terrific player. And
Yeah.
maybe some were jealous of that. But you don't get ahead in this world by dragging somebody else down.
Just wanted to
speaking
bring
of-
it to your attention because I was so shocked.
Speaking
Thank
of
you.
the WNBA, Boston got totally screwed by the WNBA. One of the former co-owners of the Celtics couldn't buy the team because it was a team in Connecticut. The Connecticut team is moving to Houston. Well, you know the end of the story, and we're getting nothing. Have you spoken to the commissioner or anybody about this?
Yeah, and look, I was really disappointed with the decision they made to move the team to Houston and an NBA owner. But I'm not giving up. Boston should be home to a WNBA team. We invented basketball here. Actually, the men's and the women's game was invented in Boston. I think New England will be without, once Connecticut goes, and hopefully we'll have them back here for a game before they do, New England will be without a women's basketball team. That's crazy. That's just crazy. So we've got to fix that. I want to continue to work with the league, Celtics ownership. Women's basketball is to say it's on the rise is an understatement. I mean, people love it, and we should have a W team here. And I'll do whatever I can to make that happen.
Before we get back to the calls and the text, Governor, something I think you're probably more familiar with. Well, we'll see in a second, that also was produced by the Globe. It's an incredibly troubling piece yesterday. There's a pattern of child sexual abuse at mass group homes, and experts fear many cases go unreported. Jason Laughlin. I want to read you a line that I had to read 3 times because I couldn't believe it. A quirk in state law permits adults in positions of authority to have consensual sex with teenagers in their care if the youth is 16 or older. These incidents may get a worker fired, prompt a DCF finding of abuse, but won't put them in prison. And then it goes on to say, a bill under consideration in the state legislature would criminalize such relationships for workers in schools, but not residential facilities. Is there any justification?
No, that's crazy. That's a crazy loophole. We got to pass that legislation immediately. We got to amend it to include residential homes. Absolutely. By the way, it's illegal as it is for anyone to do that in my book with anybody who's a young person who's in the care and the custody of the state. So, that absolutely is appalling, and that needs to be changed.
Stephen Cambridge, you're on with Governor Healey. Welcome.
Hi, Governor. I have a couple of quick questions. I know the
Steve.
shortage of trained, skilled workers in Massachusetts. My son's a plumber in New Hampshire, and he's licensed in New Hampshire and Maine. All he had to do to get his license in Maine is study and take the test. But if he wants to get his license in Massachusetts, he has to go to 5 years of school.
Oh.
Why can't he just study the test, study for the test, pass the test, and he should be good to go? Why do they make him go through 5 years of school?
Yeah, Steve, I don't know the answer to that. First of all, though, it should be easier. Second of all, it's great that your son is a plumber. There are some jobs that AI is just not going to replace, and that's
right.
a great job. And a lot of these jobs in the trades are really wonderful, great paying jobs, family sustaining jobs, and you're going to leave without debt, which is also a really good thing. As governor, I've really supported investing in the trades, investing in apprenticeship programs. Like in plumbing and elsewhere, I have a goal of 100,000 new apprentices inside of 10 years. We've already got 10,000 under our belt. So it's the kind of education and skill development that we need to continue to invest in, Steve. And I'll take a look at whatever is happening with respect to licensing here. We want people to be well trained, of course, so that they're out there producing quality work. And we also want to make it as easy as possible for people to get through and get what they need so that they can be out in a workforce.
Steve, thanks, Nicole. So as you are aware, you are running for re-election. And I'm sure you're aware, on Saturday, the Republican Party nominated, well, there'll be two people in the primary in September, nominated this guy, Mike Minogue, business person. What's your reaction to that? What do you think of him?
The party is moving forward, the Republicans are moving forward with the two most extreme candidates. They are MAGA candidates. They support Donald Trump. They support Donald Trump's tariffs. They support what Donald Trump has done on ICE. They support his cuts to health care. They support his efforts to take away abortion rights. And they support things that I think are really bad for people in Massachusetts. And so, my message is that this election will be really clear. Yes, I am aware I'm running for re-election. I love my job. I feel privileged every day to be governor. We got a lot of work to do to make life better for people here. I'm focused on affordability. Lowering costs, is job one. And we also need people to understand that this election is going to present a really clear contrast. Whoever emerges from the Republican Party, I don't know who that will be, but you cannot stand with Donald Trump and stand for the people of Massachusetts, period.
By the way, the other guy is Brian Shortley. We have invited the winner of the convention, Mike Minogue. We hope he will be with us next week.
Governor, we have a text from Bella, and I think she represents a lot of people, who says she's a young person. She wants to buy a home and stay in Massachusetts, out of reach for me financially. What can you do to make owning a home possible for young people who don't want to have to move?
Oh, Bella,
away?
I just want to say this has been my number one focus the last 3.5 years. Building more homes so that we can drive down rents, we can drive down the cost of housing. And one thing I'm going to do today, Bella, I'm going to be heading back to the State House shortly. I'm going to be announcing a new first-time home buyers program. You'll get $25,000 towards a down payment. You'll also have a lower interest rate, lower financing rate, and I'm hoping that will help more people take advantage of home ownership. I got rid of broker's fees for tenants because I'm trying to reduce what it costs to rent a house here, rent an apartment here. And every day I've been about building homes. I set a goal, having come in as governor, we were 220,000 units short in the state. No wonder, we didn't have enough supply. No wonder rents are so high and housing costs are so high, and so many people who are struggling with that. So we set about trying to fix that, and because of policy decisions that I've made, tax incentives that I've given, offering up surplus state land for housing development, working to reduce permitting times around housing development, ADUs by right now, and a whole bunch more, we have got 100,000 housing units built, under development, or permitted. So we're working every day, Bella, towards that. But I know, speaking to the kids who are in their 20s, their parents, I know how important it is. We have to build. And I continue to call on communities, all communities, to get behind a pro-housing agenda. We want the Bellas of the world to stay in Massachusetts. We want them growing up in Massachusetts and being able to afford to stay in Massachusetts, or if they come to study here, that they stay here and grow families here and grow businesses here. This vibrancy is good. It's good for our economy. It's good for our families. And that's why we need every community, and it's not one size fits all, but you got to be down with a pro-housing agenda. It's absolutely critical to the success of Massachusetts, and really, really important to all the Bellas out there who are struggling. And I just want you to know, Bella, I am really, really focused on that. building homes as quickly as possible so that we get costs down.
An anonymous texter wants to know what regulations you're putting in place for the building of data centers in light of the impact they have on the environment.
Well, there's an energy bill that I just filed that I'm hoping to get to my desk very, very soon, because we need to drive down gas and electric bills, and that's part of what my legislation will do. It'll be a big savings for people here in the state. The other thing it does is it includes language about data centers. Look, data centers we need, because we are a world today that requires so much power when it comes to computing and the energy needed for computing, for business, for our economy, and that's only increased now with AI. But we've got to do it in a smart way. Data centers can't suck all the energy off the grid away from all of us, so they've got to find a way to generate their own power and not affect what's already on the grid. And then data centers have got to be built out in a way that doesn't do harm to the environment. So those are the two things that are really important to me. Not having data centers suck all the energy from the grid, not having ratepayers foot the bill for the energy going into data centers, and not doing harm to the environment. Those are three basic principles that I think make sense and should guide data center construction around this country.
Speaking of the environment, as you know, we have Mayor Wu here at 1206, and she had a press event yesterday about her plans on climate resilience, and one of the things she said needs to be considered is congestion pricing. She didn't say she's in favor of it, she just says it has to be on the list. I believe that's something were it to happen in Boston, which would require the legislature and your approval. Obviously, it's happened in New York City, and the governor there seems pretty happy about it, as does Mamdani. What's your position on congestion pricing, Governor?
Well, I think that we've got to do a few things. One, we've got to work to keep our roads safe. We certainly need to reduce congestion and reduce traffic on our roads. And we need to protect our communities from climate change. So those are all three things that I believe in. It's also in a moment where people are already struggling with costs and affordability. So we can't be, creating more problems for people that way. But as I understand it, it's a study. So we'll see what comes out of it.
Do you think congestion pricing in Boston would create more problems that way, as you suggested?
I guess we'll learn more through the study.
Okay.
David in Ashburnham, you're on with the governor. Thanks
Hello
for
there.
calling.
Hi, thank you for taking my call. Jim and Marjorie, I really appreciate the fact you give us this venue to ask the governor questions.
Well, I would thank
And,
her, not us,
Governor
but thank
Healey,
you. Go ahead.
Oh, well, thank you. Well, Governor Healey, I want to ask you something about, you mentioned a kind of an offhanded comment about basketball being invented in Boston, when I think we all know it's that
Springfield.
Yeah.
Springfield.
And,
Go ahead, David.
It seems a little tongue-in-cheek, but I do want to ask you about your economic development policies for the rest of Massachusetts. We've talked a lot about tech innovation, the seaport and things, so I want to give you the chance to address that, because for those of us that live outside of Boston, sometimes we feel like we're forgotten in some of this.
Well, thanks for the question, David. And you can be sure I know where basketball was invented. I believe I said Massachusetts, not Boston. I was not talking about Boston, though I love Boston. And go Celtics, who are going to hopefully advance soon.
Yeah.
When I think about what we've done and how my administration has approached things, it is with an eye towards all of Massachusetts. I don't think an administration has spent as much time around the state, including in central and western Massachusetts, and as we have. I have, made sure that in this economic development bill, as I did in my first economic development bill, we have funding available that goes out statewide. It absolutely does. I think that in particular, a focus on advanced manufacturing and what we can develop in places, a focus on applied AI and what we can develop in places around the state is really, really important. So I'm a big believer that we've got to make use of every single community, and every single community has something to offer, to bring to the table. We put a lot of funding in economic development into Main Street programs, into small business programs. And some of these are more applicable to the greater Boston region, and some of these are more applicable outside of greater Boston. But we've got to do it all, because if we're only driving one sector of the economy, we fail. If we're only driving one region, we fail. We've got to work to make sure that we are driving success across our economy. I also think that foundations for business success depend on quality of housing, affordability of housing. That's why we're trying to build housing all over the state. Investments in education. And I can tell you that there are cities and towns across the state, including many in more rural districts like Western Massachusetts, who are struggling right now with education costs. In large part driven by healthcare costs, which have gone through the roof in this country. So getting more money to cities and towns for their schools, for their roads and bridges so people can get around and not have to wait, and add another half hour to their day on some detour because some bridge has been down for the last 20 years. These things matter. Giving money to our small businesses and to cities and towns, smaller cities and towns, to create more vibrancy on their main streets. All of this matters. Investing in free community college, investing in early college and vocational seats in high school so that employers in regions around the state have a ready workforce of students who now leave and are ready to be deployed doing the things, whether it's in advanced manufacturing or other areas, ready to go and ready to be part of the Massachusetts economy is really, really important.
You said in that answer about a dozen times, you either said funding or state dollars, that sort of thing. We mentioned this in passing with you before, there is likely to be one of many ballot questions before the voters in November that would cut the state income tax by what Evan Horowitz at Tufts told us would be roughly $5.4 billion. I know you oppose that. What's your plan to oppose that? What's the agenda? What's the campaign? What's going to happen?
This is a crazy thing to do. If these ballot questions go through and if they're voted on in November and if they pass, the hit to our economy will be catastrophic. Right out of the gate, we'll lose 10% of our budget. That's a budget that already has seen $3.5 billion cut from it by Donald Trump. You'd lose funding for education, for economic development, for cities and towns, local aid. This is really devastating for the economy. It'd be bad for residents. It also, here's the thing, Jim, the business group that's promoting it and the leader, I don't think he understands what the fundamentals of economic success are. Because if you don't have an education system, you don't have a functioning public transit system, you don't have roads and bridges that people can get around on, you don't have support for cities and towns, where's your economy? Where's your growth? I'm a pro-growth, pro-business Democrat, okay? And to me, to cut the legs out from our economy by defunding the state budget in that catastrophic a way, which grows, by the way, over time, it makes no sense. It makes no sense. And I think most in the business community get that. Massachusetts differentiates itself around the country by being number one in education, number one in healthcare. There are a lot of advantages to our state, and they don't just happen. It's because we make smart investments. And that's why these tax questions, by the way, when I cut taxes, and I'm the first governor to do that in over 20 years, my tax cuts were middle-class tax cuts. This 5 to 4%, that's regressive. Regular people aren't going to benefit from that in any way. That doesn't make any sense.
Have you asked the business leaders who oppose this to raise money or in any way to...
I've been in active discussions with folks across the business community, which does not speak with one voice on this, by the way. There's a group that's proposing this, and then I think
Mass High Tech Council.
There are a lot, the vast majority of folks in the business community, I think, understand how foolhardy this is as an initiative.
One last thing about ballot questions. I'm sorry, Margie, but it's ballot related. I asked you last month about the audit the legislature question that passed with 72% of the vote a year and a half ago, and I asked you if you'd use your position to try to bring the Attorney General, who as of the moment has not agreed to represent the auditor in this. The auditor is now in front of the Supreme Judicial Court next week, arguing that they should order that she gets her own lawyer if Andrea Campbell will not represent her. We get, I would say, as many texts, even if we're not talking about this, as any subject matter, even though I'm not sure people really even understand what auditing a legislature is. Is there nothing you can do to try to get what the people overwhelmingly voted for in their hands?
I've done what I can, and I continue to say I voted with the 72%. I voted for the audit. I think it should happen, and I continue to say that.
So why don't you feel you could bring the two constitutional officers together in an attempt to find common ground?
Right now, that's in court. I wish they would. I wish we would move past this. There's bigger issues right now in the state, and my focus is on how do I build homes as quickly as possible at lower costs? How do I get people's gas and electric bills down? And how do we lower healthcare costs? And how do we create an economy that's growing? Whether it's folks like Tim who need work, or people like Bella who are looking for opportunities to stay and be successful here in the state. That is my focus. But to be clear, notwithstanding anything you read or see online, I support the audit. I wish it would happen. I voted for it with the 72%.
So
we'll see what happens.
Another thing we get a lot of texts about, not so many today, but we have a few. I didn't even know you did this. I guess they used to not be able to hunt on Sundays.
Mm-hmm.
We're getting several people that want to know, they're very upset about this. They want to be able to walk in the woods on Sundays. They want to be able to go on picnics, whatever, hike, whatever. So why did you get rid of the ban on hunting on Sundays?
Because it didn't make sense. Massachusetts was 2 of 50 states that still banned hunting on Sundays. In 48 other states, they allow hunting on Sundays. I think it's important for a few reasons. Not everybody works a 5-day week. And, in a busy world where people are, raising kids and just trying to do the basics, Sunday may be the only day they have to go out and do something, which, by the way, puts food on their table. And the hunters that I've met, look, there's an organization on the South Coast that feeds 100,000 families a year in food pantries through what they get through hunting, through their donations. So I think it's important for food security. I think it's also a matter of affordability. I think when it comes to wildlife management, again, I just didn't willy-nilly do this. I brought together a range of stakeholders, including our Department of Fish and Wildlife that trains hunters, that teaches hunting and safe hunting, and also does wildlife management. We've got a tick problem, tick-borne diseases out of control, and populations of deer, for example, that need to be managed. So I think this is an appropriate way to do this. I'm also very confident that people will be able to walk in the woods and enjoy outdoor recreation. Massachusetts, #1 state for outdoor recreation. We were recently voted. I'm confident they're going to be able to do that in a way that's safe. And they do it in 48 other states. And I'm confident that we can do it here, and it's the right thing to be doing.
What's your favorite outdoor recreation activity, Governor?
Any these days. And I don't know, how about you? How do you feel? We finally emerged from the winter and the snow and the cold, so I could be doing just about anything outside. I do like my, walk, run, or jog, whatever you might call it.
Before you go,
we're working up to that.
One of the most impactful moments in the years you've been kind enough to join us was when David Scott took to the mic there a couple of years ago, whose brother had died at the Fernald School at 17. He'd never been able to find any information about his brother. You responded, you initiated with Alex Green, who's a wonderful advocate, who, by the way, just won the National Book Award for his piece on Fernald himself for biographies. The law was passed that does give access to academics and family members, and I think there was great relief and gratitude. When Alex was with us a couple of weeks ago, right after he won the National Book Award, he said, despite how important the law is, that both the Department of Mental Health and the Department of Public Health are not complying with that law. You're nodding, like, do you know this? And if this is true, is this something you'll address?
No, I wasn't nodding about that.
Okay.
No, I don't know, but I'll take it back. One of the reasons I like coming on the show is people will raise questions, or they'll, need help with something, or they'll point out something that isn't working and that we're doing. And, my response is to always go back and, all right, circle up the team and what do we need to do?
Terrific. Glad to hear
And
it.
congratulations, too, on the National Book Award.
I know.
That's a great thing he did.
Yeah.
Fabulous book, fabulous advocate. Alex Green, it's about Fernald, who was after whom the Fernald School is named, and it's brilliant, really interesting.
And he talked about how there were so many unmarked graves and so many families trying to be able to find out what happened to their loved ones in there because of secrecy about the records. So, again, congratulations to him. Governor, thank you very much.
Well, we have 1 minute left.
You have 1 minute left?
So this won't take long. You think Trump's doing a good job?
Yeah, look, I'll tell you this. I am hell-bent on moving forward with optimism and hope in our great state. There are no doubt that we have challenges. I'm going to confront them every day, working together with people here to improve the quality of life, to improve our economy, and to be true to who we are as Massachusetts. I'm proud of the state. I'm proud of our people. I'm proud of our history here on the eve of the celebration of the 250th. It's also the case that we need to stand up to Donald Trump when he does things to harm our people, to harm our states, to harm our country. And, I think November will make that really clear. You can stand with Donald Trump or you can stand with the people of Massachusetts.